In 40 years of clinical practice, the single most painful phone call I received was always the same. It came from a mother or a father, almost always over 65, and the voice on the other end was trying very hard not to cry. They would tell me, in different words, the same thing. My child does not call me anymore. My child does not visit. My child answers my messages with one word, or not at all. And I do not know what I did wrong. Today, I want to give you the exact words I gave those parents for 40 years. Not theory, not opinion. The actual sentences I watched repair relationships in real life. If you have ever felt the silence of an adult child who used to be close, please stay with me. This conversation is for you. My name is Dr. Harold Whitman. I am a retired clinical psychologist. I spent 4 decades working with adults over 60, and one of the most common wounds I treated, by far, was the wound of being ignored by your own grown children. I want to begin by saying something I had to say to nearly every patient who came to me with this pain. You are not alone. You did not necessarily do something wrong, and there is more you can do than you think. But it requires saying very specific things in very specific ways. Let me first explain something about what we observe clinically. When an adult child pulls away from a parent, the parent almost always assumes one of 2 things. Either, I did something to hurt them, and they will not tell me what, or they simply do not love me anymore. In my experience, both of these explanations are almost always wrong. What is actually happening, in the vast majority of cases, is something much quieter, much less personal, and much more solvable than parents fear. Adult children in their 30s, 40s, and even 50s are often drowning. They are drowning in work, in their own children, in marriages that take effort, in financial pressure, in the noise of modern life. And in that drowning, they often pull away from the people they assume will always be there, which is you. The painful irony is that the very strength of your love, the fact that you have always shown up, is often what makes them feel safe enough to disappear for a while. That is not an excuse for their behavior, but it is an explanation. And understanding it changes everything about what you say next. Now I want to give you the practical guidance. I am going to walk you through 5 specific situations where adult children commonly hurt their parents through silence or distance. For each one, I am going to give you the psychology of why it happens, and then I am going to give you the exact words I told my patients to use. Write these down. Save this video. Because these are not generic phrases. These are sentences I refined over 40 years, watching what actually worked. Situation 1. Your adult child has stopped calling. Weeks pass. Maybe months. You check the phone, hoping. You see them post on social media, so you know they are alive, you know they are fine, and the silence becomes a slow ache. Here is what most parents do in this situation. They wait. And waiting, in my clinical experience, is the worst possible response. Because while you are waiting in pain, your adult child is not aware that you are in pain. They assume you are fine. They assume you understand they are busy. They assume the silence is mutual. And the longer you wait, the more the distance feels normal to them. So here is what I want you to do. You call. You do not wait. You call. And when they answer, or when you leave a voicemail, you use these exact words. You can say, I was thinking about you today, and I just wanted to hear your voice for a few minutes. There is nothing wrong. I just love you, and I miss you. Call me back when you can. Now I want to explain why these specific words work. First, they communicate love without demand. You are not saying, "You never call me." You are not saying, "Why have you been ignoring me?" You are simply offering warmth freely. Second, you say there is nothing wrong. This is critical, because adult children often avoid calling parents when they feel guilty, and they assume any call from you is going to be about that guilt. By telling them directly that there is nothing wrong, you remove the wall. Third, you say, "Call me back when you can." You give them control of the timing. In my experience, this single phone call, made calmly and without resentment, restarts more relationships than any long emotional confrontation ever does. Situation 2. Your adult child only responds in short, cold messages. You send a long, warm message asking about their life, sharing something from yours, and they respond with one word. Okay, yes, thanks, maybe an emoji. And it cuts you. It feels dismissive. It feels like they do not care. Here is what is actually happening, in my experience. They are not being cold on purpose. They are responding the way they respond to everyone in their busy day. Quickly, functionally, without thinking about how it lands on you. The mistake most parents make is to either respond with more long messages, hoping to get a real reply, or to send a passive-aggressive message in return. Both of these make things worse. So here's what I want you to try instead. The next time your adult child sends you a one-word reply, do not match their energy down. Instead, send this. You can say, "Got it. I love you. Talk soon." That is all. 3 short sentences. No guilt, no long follow-up, no question they have to answer. Here's why this works. You are showing them that you are not wounded by their brevity. You are also keeping the warmth open. And paradoxically, when you stop trying so hard to extract connection from them, many adult children come back on their own. The pressure was the problem. When you remove it, they often relax and start reaching toward you again. Situation 3. Your adult child cancels visits at the last minute. They had planned to come for the weekend, or for the holiday, or even just for an afternoon, and the day before, or the day of, they call and say something came up. And you sit there with the prepared meal, the made-up bed, the open afternoon, and you feel small. This is one of the most painful patterns because it happens repeatedly, and each time it chips away at trust. Most parents respond in one of 2 ways. Either they say, "It's fine, don't worry about it," while seething inside, or they explode and say, "You always do this." Both responses damage the relationship further. Here's what I want you to say instead, and I want you to say it calmly, without emotion in your voice. You can say, "I am disappointed. I had been looking forward to it. I love you, and I hope we can find another time soon." That is the script. 3 sentences. Let me explain why this works. First, you name the truth. You are disappointed. You do not pretend you are fine. Pretending damages relationships because the other person senses the falseness, and they stop trusting your words. Second, You do not attack their character. You do not say, "You always cancel," or "You do not respect my time." You just state your own experience. This is what therapists call non-accusatory honesty, and in my 40 years, it was the single most powerful relational tool I ever taught. Third, you immediately follow your honesty with love and openness to the future. You are not punishing them. You are simply being real. Adult children, in my experience, respect this kind of communication. They may not change overnight, but they begin to take you seriously again, because you are being a whole person, not a person they can disappoint without consequence. Situation 4. Your adult child does not invite you to important moments. The birthday party of your grandchild, the dinner with their friends, the trip they took. You find out about it after the fact, sometimes on social media, and the exclusion is unmistakable. This is one of the deepest wounds, because it tells you not just that you are forgotten, but that there was an active choice to leave you out. In my experience, this almost always comes from one of two places. Either your adult child is trying to manage their own anxiety about combining different parts of their life, or there has been an unspoken tension between you that they have not addressed. Most parents, when they discover the exclusion, either say nothing and quietly suffer, or they confront with anger. Both of these responses keep you locked out. Here's what I recommend instead. Wait 2 or 3 days. Do not react in the heat of the moment. Then call them and use these words. You can say, "I noticed I wasn't included in the birthday party. I'm not angry, but I want to ask, honestly, is there something between us that we need to talk about? I would rather know than guess." Let me explain why this works. First, you waited. The 2 or 3 day pause removes the rawness from your voice. Second, you state what you noticed without accusation. You did not say, "You excluded me." You said, "I noticed I wasn't included." There is a subtle but important difference. Third, you explicitly say you are not angry. This is critical, because adult children often avoid difficult conversations with parents precisely because they expect anger. By naming the absence of anger, you create safety for honesty. Fourth, and most importantly, you ask. Many parents are afraid to ask because they are afraid of the answer. But in my 40 years of practice, I can tell you that the unspoken answer is always worse than the spoken one. Asking opens the door, and in many cases what you find on the other side is not what you feared. Situation 5. Your adult child seems to favor their in-laws or their spouse's family over you. They spend the holidays there. They go on vacation with them. They post photos with them. And you watch from a distance, feeling replaced. This is one of the most painful situations I treated in my career, because it touches on something very old in human beings, the fear of being replaced by someone newer, someone closer to the next generation. Most parents in this situation either say nothing and grieve in silence, or they make passive-aggressive comments that push the child further away. I want to offer you a different path. The path is to stop competing and start inviting. Here is the exact script. Call your adult child calmly and say, "I want you to know I am so glad you have such a close relationship with their family. I'm not competing with anyone. I just want you to know that I am here, and I would love to find a small tradition that is just ours, whatever fits your life. even something simple, whatever works. Why does this work? Because you have just done something almost no one does. You have refused to play the role of the wounded, jealous parent. You have given your child permission to love their other family. And then, calmly, you have asked for something small for yourself. Not the holiday, not the vacation, just something small and real. In my experience, this approach softens adult children profoundly. They feel safe to be close to you again because you are not pulling, you are not guilt-tripping, you are not making them choose. You are simply asking for your own small space in their life. And almost always, they give it. Sometimes more than you ask for. I want to take a moment before we close, because I know some of you are listening to all of this, and the pain is so deep, the silence has been so long, that none of these scripts feel possible. Maybe you have already tried. Maybe your adult child is genuinely estranged, not just busy. Maybe there was a real rupture, and the silence is not a misunderstanding, but a wall. To you, I want to say this. The work, in your case, may not be in finding the perfect words. The work may be in grieving what you cannot control, while keeping one quiet door open. I told many of my patients in this position to write one short letter once a year on a meaningful date. Not a long letter, not a guilt letter, just a few sentences. You can write, "I am still here. I still love you. The door is open whenever you are ready." That letter, in my experience, does something powerful, even if you receive no reply. It keeps the door open without keeping you trapped at it. You can live your life. You can find peace. And the door stays open. There's something else I want to address because it came up in my office hundreds of times over the years. Many parents who feel ignored by their adult children also feel something they are ashamed to say out loud. They feel angry, not just hurt, angry. They sacrificed, they worked, they gave up their own dreams. They were there for every fever, every recital, every difficult phase. And now, in the season of their lives when they most need warmth, the warmth is not there. I want to say to you very clearly that anger is a normal response to that experience. It does not make you a bad parent. It does not mean you love your child less. But here is what I learned from 40 years of practice. Anger, when you bring it into the conversation, almost always closes the door. So the work is not to suppress the anger. The work is to feel it fully, somewhere safe, before you pick up the phone. Talk to a friend, write in a journal, see a therapist. Walk it out. And then, when you actually speak to your child, speak from the love underneath the anger. The love is the older feeling. The love is the truer feeling. Speak from there. I also want to say something to those of you who feel that nothing you do is making any difference. You have called, you have written, you have used the words, and still the silence continues. I want you to hear me. In my experience, change in these relationships is almost never linear. You can do everything right for 6 months and see no shift. And then, suddenly, one weekend, your child calls and visits and stays for hours. The shift, when it comes, often surprises everyone. So do not measure your work by the immediate response. Measure your work by whether you are showing up with dignity, with calm, with love. That is your part. Their response is their part. You cannot control both. You can only be sure of one. I want to leave you with one truth that took me 40 years to fully understand. The relationship between an aging parent and an adult child is one of the most asymmetric in human life. You watched them be born. You raised them. They are the entire history of your love. But to them, you are simply the parent who was always there. They do not yet know what it feels like to be the older one in the relationship. Most of them will only understand what they are doing to you when their own children begin to do it to them. Until then, you carry the love, you carry the patience, you carry the dignity. That is not fair. But it is the role of the older generation, and the parents I watched do it with grace, with calm words, with open doors, are the parents whose children eventually came back. Not always quickly, but they came back. Because love, when it is offered without pressure, has a way of finding its way home. If this conversation helped you, I would be grateful if you subscribed to this channel. I post new reflections every Tuesday and Thursday, and many of them speak directly to the relational struggles of later life. And please remember, this is educational content. It is not a substitute for professional care. If the pain in your family feels too heavy to carry alone, please consider speaking with a licensed therapist. There is no shame in asking for support. Thank you for spending this time with me today. Be gentle with yourself. Keep the door open. And remember, the words you choose in the next conversation matter more than all the silence that came before it. We will talk again soon.